Hello, everybody. It's Nancy. Welcome to Into the Rabbit Hole with me. For those of you guys who are new, I have a fifth grader and I have a seventh grader. I am now dropping the part I used to say a rising fifth grader, rising seventh grader, because at this point we just pretty much dived into all our fifth grade and seventh grade stuff. So for the 2026-27 school year, I'm going to have a fifth grader and a seventh grader. So I thought it would be fun for us to do kind of like not a day in the life, but kind of what we have done today. And it's stuff I usually share on Instagram, but I thought it might be fun to do it here on YouTube for those of you guys who aren't on Instagram and you can see. And this isn't our we're not up to scale yet. We're not in our 100% all the things that I'd like for us to cover kind of stage, because we're kind of like just slowly integrating it and easing it in until we are at 100%. But even when we are up to 100%, I like to loop in specific things, And so you might see some weeks I don't do something, but then I'm doing something else. Like IEW for my fifth grader. Not with my older son, but with my fifth grader, IEW is something that I do, but I loop it in. So we did the first 10 lessons of what is that one? I don't even know. Is it 1A or is it 2A? I don't even know. We did the first 10 lessons and we've taken a break from it for a good, probably 2 months. And that's going to get looped in soon. So I would say the first week of August, we're probably going to spend all of August looping that back in. And we may do that for like a solid 2 months until we loop it out. Hopefully that makes sense. But I want to start with math. This is our second week doing math with confidence. This is a completely new to us curriculum. And so I have been enjoying it. I've been enjoying it. We've been covering things that we haven't covered in a long time. Review things like averages, how to do an average, and necessary things like that. And I've been really enjoying this so far. But again, it's only 2 weeks in, but I will say it's very easy to follow, but that doesn't mean it's an easy curriculum. It's very easy to follow. It's laid out in an easy to understand way. I feel like all these components are done, like the math that you're doing, it's done in manageable chunks. It's not overwhelming. There are a solid 2 pages worth of work that they are doing. Technically it's 3 pages, but you do 1 page together. So let's take this one. You do 1 page together when you see more than one person. This is all something you're supposed to do together, the parent and the student. And then when you see the singular person here, this is something that they do completely on their own. So they would do this page completely on their own, and then they always have a review page. So then this is a review page. The review page I find especially helpful. There are things in there that need to be reviewed. And I love that it's a variety of different things. So I am used to having a review section in Eureka, which is the math that I moved from. It just wasn't sticking as well for some reason this 5th grade year. No fault to the curriculum at all. We used it K through 4th grade. And then we even used one whole module from 5th grade. It just wasn't hitting as good as it normally does, So I decided to try something new because I had to supplement Eureka into something that would stick with my child, and that was taking up a lot of time and energy. And so I decided to switch, and I decided to go with this after a lot of research, and I think it's going to be really good. I don't want to say, I think it has a misconception of it being easy just because it's colorful and you have bigger fonts and all that kind of stuff. And I don't necessarily think that that's the case. It's hitting all the things that we would be hitting in Eureka, and Eureka is a highly regarded curriculum as well. It's not made for homeschool, it's like a school curriculum, and that is an excellent curriculum. But I will say also, just keep in mind too, that I am going to also, I haven't started this week, but next week I'm going to start. I'm also using this in conjunction with the units from Beyond the Page, the math 5th grade units. We've already done one whole unit, and so we're going to jump into the second unit next week. I just wanted to give us a couple weeks of getting used to the flow of this, But we're going to be doing this in conjunction with, on the same day, Beyond the Page. We just may not get through a whole lesson of Beyond the Page, maybe half a lesson's worth, you know what I mean? As we figure out our flow and rhythm on how we're going to merge those two together. But anyway, so my 5th grader did math. So that's what we did today. Another thing that he did is he is doing this unit from Beyond the Page, poetry. And so for today specifically, he picked a poem. Now, it doesn't tell me what poem to pick. It actually told me a poem to pick from in here to have my child memorize. But if we're going to memorize a piece of poetry, I want it to be a quality piece of poetry. You know, like I remember being in 3rd or 4th grade around there and having to memorize Stopping by the Woods on a Snowy Evening from Robert Frost. And to this day, I still remember it. So if he's going to remember something, I want him to remember something of quality. So instead, I have this Langston Hughes book, The Dreamkeeper and Other Poems, and he picked a line of poetry from in here. He picked Dreams. So that was the assignment for today, is to pick a piece of poetry from this book, but we disregarded it and did this book. And he's going to have to memorize it by the end of the unit, by the end of this whole entire unit type thing. The other thing that he did is he picked a poem from this book, and he found 5 words that he can look in his, we use a thesaurus, this one, Children's Thesaurus, newly updated grades 3 to 6 from the American Heritage. And I'll show you what it looks like on the inside. And then I like it. It's like a little bit of a bigger font, not as overwhelming as like a full-on thesaurus. Of course, it's not going to have all the words in here, though. You know, that's the downside. So anyway, so he picked 5 words from a piece of poetry. Here, I'll show you which one. He ended up going with... He ended up going with this one. See, this, my shadow. Always attached to me, this black transparency. I can't escape the shape of my shadow. So we went ahead and we read that. He picked 5. No, sorry. He did this one. He did this one, rain to snow, this one in here. And we worked on what a doublet is and how it's used. And so we went over that whole thing. And then he picked 5 words from here. And I don't have the sheet. Actually, I do have the sheet. I have the sheet. It's right over here. So these are the 5 words that he picked, and then he went on the thesaurus and he found 5 better alternatives for these words. And then he had to go ahead and pick a poem from the book again in here, and we worked on visual imagery, and he drew a picture of what he imagined this poem to look like, you know? So then we read this, and then he did that. And that's pretty much all we did. I kind of just did a little bit of a half lesson, I guess. Well, technically it's not a half lesson. This is what's slotted for day 2. So I'll show you what that means. Hold on. So we are on lesson 1, but on day 2. See, memorizing poetry. And we had to pick a poem for him to memorize out of the book. But again, I picked Langston Hughes instead. Then we did poetry techniques, which was this printout, and then you keep a journal and stuff, but I'll show you. So we did this poetry vocabulary, we did this page, we did this page. This is something that we did, I think, day 1, but then we worked on these poetry techniques, and so then we finished up that part. So this is the sheet that I just shared with you. So this was for day 2. So we picked a piece of poetry from in here, started working on memorizing it, and then we finished out those sheets from there. So we did that from beyond the page. The other thing that he did is he did writing with ease, and today was a copy work day. So it was a dictation exercise and stuff. So we did that. So that was writing with ease. That was easy, simple, fast. And then the other thing that he did is we are working our way through our first arrow from Brave Writer, and we did The Boy Who Saved Baseball. So he is, we're doing all the things for that as well. So we worked on this a little bit. He read 2 chapters from here, and that I think is pretty much math and ELA. I almost forgot to share this one. This is new to us too. First language lessons, I'm doing the workbook number 4, and I'm honestly really liking it. So I am liking it. Don't have too much to say. Today was just day 2 of us doing it. So far, really impressed. My son loves us a whole ton better than it's not Saxon grammar, but it's the Curtis Hake or whatever, the creator of it. That's the one that we were using. But, and he did it for all of 4th grade as well, but he was just like, I'm just not enjoying it. And guess what? Grammar is not one of those that I'm willing to go to bat for, because literally I feel personally, every grammar curriculum is exactly the same. It's just the only difference is in the method in which they teach it. But it's one of those that the rigor is going to be the same throughout. Like there's others that you can argue with, like the writing, with literature, with that kind of stuff. Grammar, the rigor is going to be the same throughout. Like that's not a hill I'm willing to die on. And so I switched over to this one and we are really enjoying it. I think I'm going to do a separate video and I'm going to be comparing and contrasting the one I was using to this one. And I think you guys are going to see a really big difference between the two. This one I feel is just cleaner and more open. Okay, so I'll do a different video talking and flipping through those two so that way you guys can see. Okay, so that was with my 5th grader. What we do is we have morning work that we do together as a family. And so before we even started ELA, before we did all that, we start in the morning together and we do certain things together. So we are working our way through Robinson Crusoe. And so we followed along and they each have their own copy because again, they're following along and they're also annotating specific things that I want them to annotate as we read to keep them engaged in the text and stuff, you know? We are continuing to read through ancient mythology. Right now we're reading Buddha, about Buddha and how he came to be and all that stuff. Then we did a lesson from Philosophy for Kids. And then new to us is the Spanish, beginning Spanish for homeschoolers. And we went over the first like 3 lessons, really, the first 6 lessons. So it's going over articles and for Spanish, how it has a masculine and a feminine version of the word the, of the article the. And so we kind of went over that. And so we did that. So we did the first 6 lessons, and then we're going to be doing this one next. So we did that. I have a more formal Spanish curriculum that we're also going to be doing starting on Monday. I just need time to get all my ducks in a row. But we're going to be doing that in addition to this. So this is what we're going to be doing as part of our family time. But when we do the other Spanish, it's going to be a more structured format. You know what I mean? And then we continued on with poetry and we read, I'll show you what we read. It was actually a really cool poem. It was a ballad. It was Robin Hood and the Ranger, an anonymous English ballad. And then we read this poem, or a ballad, and it was really cool. I actually really liked it. This next one, we have already read this one, and so we're on to this one. But this one is actually a really cool poem. Time, You Old Gypsy Man by Ralph Hodgson. So this is what I mean about the Memoria Press, like poetry ones. There's tons of poetry in here that I've never heard of, never read, that have quickly become my favorites. And that one is a favorite of mine. Time, You Old Gypsy Man. It got you right in the guzzard, It was one of those like, whoa, So anyway, that's what we did for morning work today. We kind of didn't even start school until about 9:15 or so, so we had a lot of a late start. Normally I like for us to start at around 7:30 in the morning. Usually by the time everybody gets down, it's about 8 o'clock in the morning, but usually we're done with all our ELA, all our morning work, all our math. We're usually done by 11, and that is glorious when that happens. Today, it wasn't until closer to noon, So for history, we have a couple different things like going on. This is our first week after taking a 3-week break from one of our history spines, which is Story of the World. This is one of our spines, and I'm looping this in with another spine, which is a Joy Hakeem, A History of Us. And we're going to start book 3 or book 4 of that. We've already done book 2 and book 3. And so we're going to start, I believe, book 4, or I could be mistaken. It could be book 3. I don't know. We're going to start that not next week, but the week after. But for right now, we're cycling in this, and then we're stopping at that moment when it starts to get into the American Revolution, and that is when we're moving over to the Joy Hakeem one. But anyway, we have not finished The Mysterious Voyage of Captain Kidd. So we're committed. We want to see that through. We're looping that in. It has to do with the same time frame as what we're learning about right now. We're still continuing to read the Spanish book in here. And then we have things that we do in here. So you may be asking, what is it that I do in here? I created lesson plans for this. And so you'll see in here, I have reading comprehension questions for us that we're going to be doing. There are primary sources that we use at the end of every lesson that we do. There's read aloud possibilities, like the Man in the Iron Mask. I really wanted to do that one. It's not going to happen. And do the suggested map work from the activity book. We do that every time. And then there's usually video links that I have in here for every single lesson in here. And narration exercise, do it from the activity book. So those are my lesson plans. So right now we are on chapter 14. So that is what we're on, and that's what our history looks like. And we do this right now collectively as a group, and I have them write down the answers to those questions after we're done. So there's some notebooking that we do afterwards. So we do notebooking, we go over primary sources, we watch YouTube videos, that kind of stuff. And we also read these books. So that's what I am doing for history. We just finished science with my 5th grader, and I'm not going to be able to get to like my 7th grader stuff today, but I will do that on a separate video, like for like a different week. So this video is just going to be kind of focused on like what my 5th grader did for the day, you know? So we started our very first lesson from Oak Meadow. So what we did today, and the way that I broke it up, is today we did the reading for in here, the scientific method and bird beaks and tools, and we collected pictures of birds and we started grouping them according to beak type. And we kind of already started talking about this, but this is what we're going to continue doing for tomorrow. So for tomorrow, we're going to do this, and we're going to set up our experiment, set up our hypothesis. I'm going to use our Jack and Link scientific method dry erase board, and we're just going to lay the things out that way. Very low key. It's just doing it that way. This does not have the templates for like a science lab type of thing. So that's the only downside that I found. But again, you can find that fairly easy and for free on Teachers Pay Teachers. But again, I'm using the Jack and Link dry erase board. I'll try to insert like a photo in here so you know what I'm talking about. So what I did today is I talked a little bit about Oak Meadow, what my plans are for this year for him specifically, and I read this to him. I went over the assignments for the week together with him. So we did this together. We briefly went over the experiment, but I wasn't too worried about this because again, we're going to be doing this tomorrow. So I kind of just said, hey, we're going to be doing this kind of thing and we'll go into detail about it tomorrow. So we kind of just did like a brief overview. Then he read this independently. So these are the reading sections. He read the section on the scientific method on his own. He did the bird beaks as tools. So he read these pages and he did this. And that was it. That's all the reading he had to do. So we completed this very first section, and then we collected pictures of birds and we grouped them. And again, we talked about this. So how did I get the pictures? So we got the pictures from in here. He selected whatever birds that he wanted, and then I photocopied them. And I'll show you what I did with them in a second. And then we also picked some cards from in here. And these are several of the cards that he picked several. My husband just came home from work and he's teasing the kids. He does like, anyway, and I photocopied these, right? So then he cut them out, and then he went over here and he grouped them over here. So I just had the chart paper. I had him group it up here versus doing it in his notebook, because for the first several lessons, we're just going to be doing this together. I wanted to get comfortable, get used to the expectations and stuff. And I know every week it's going to change. But for this very first lesson, I just put it up on chart paper. He did that over here. Tomorrow, he's going to go back through and he's going to label the birds, and then he's going to write down what they eat. So that's what he's going to do tomorrow, in addition to setting up the experiment for tomorrow and forming his hypothesis and things of that sort. And that's it, guys. So we got history, we got science, we did the morning work that I shared with you guys. We did math, and we did the ELA. And that is it, my friends. And guess what? I am tired. I am tired, and I need to just unwind for like a little bit, you know? All right, I'll catch you guys next time. Subscribe if you find this interesting. Let me know if you guys have any questions, okay? Bye, guys.